feel like I've seen you with Fresco. Chanel? Oh, yeah. Joining us tonight. I'm really excited to have you all here. My name is Ogie. I am an artist and a filmmaker, and I had the immense pleasure of creating a campaign with Levi. It's called The Beauty of Becoming. And tonight, we're going to show you two of the short films that's in that campaign. And we're also here in honor to celebrate Pride. And I'm really, really excited to be in community with you all and to support such an incredible cause. For me, in creating Beauty of Becoming campaign was really about giving space to people understanding that there is no end goal in life and that you get to grant yourself permission to reinvent yourself as many times as you see fit. And at the end of the day, I know that we like to put our icons, our celebrities on pedestal, but this campaign for me serves as an offering and a reminder that no one starts off great, that you become that. And so hopefully this campaign highlights the many process and the many paths that one can take into becoming who they're meant to be. And so that ties in perfectly with the Pride campaign that we now have going on, which just really highlights that you get to grant yourself the permission to reinvent yourself as many times as possible. And so with that said, we will start off with our first film by Brandon Flynn.
My name is Brandon Flynn. I think the moment that launched me into activism was around the time I think that I came out and was around school and was around family members, and I was new to myself, but also I was in spaces where people didn't know how to interact with me. And I think showing people how to love me, how to think of me, I think that is activism. So I think I've been involved in activism in small ways and in big ways since I was probably around 14. If I could advise my 14-year-old self in regards to the journey of becoming, I would tell him something along the lines of, know that the more you lean into expressing how you really feel and expressing what you really need, you will slowly, day by day, fall into a pattern of becoming who you want to be.
Flynn joining us. Brandon? Brandon.
So loud and proud, huh?
Yo, it really is though, right?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Brandon looks so good. Okay, wait, enough of flirting with you. One of the things that you said in your film that really stood out to me, which is honestly probably my favorite line in the entire campaign, is that when you said, when you discovered this new identity of yourself, not only was it new to you, but you had to teach people how to love you and how to interact with you. And that was your introduction into activism. Can you talk more about that? Because I felt that that was so incredibly fascinating. And to be 14 and to have that concept really blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, looking back at some of the way things were unfolding when I was coming to terms with who I was, coming to terms with my queerness, I now have more language for it, that I was negotiating with people. And queerness, to me, is that. It's negotiating with people. And now I think my negotiations are much more, I get to look at them as like what I want out of the deal, out of the negotiation, versus, you know, at 14, I was negotiating to be what other people needed me to be, what other people wanted me to be. And yeah, I mean, at that age, at that time, in that political climate, it was teaching a lot of people how to love us. I think we're still doing that. That's why we still fight. That's why things are never going to look the way they should look, because we still need to stand up and we still need to be the voices for each other, for our community.
Question for you. What does allyship look like for you?
It looks like listening a lot, and it looks like being willing to reframe a lot of my own beliefs, my own ways that I grew up with that made me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like mesmerized by your eyes. Like, isn't he beautiful though? Like, he has the most beautiful smile. And I'm like, he was talking and I promised I was listening more. But like, I was just so captivated by his eyes and I was like, what? I love it. How would you say that you evolving into your queerness has also served as an offering or an invitation into the way that you show up in activism?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know how it feels to be alone and to feel unloved. And I also know how it feels to find community that accepts me. And that tells me I don't have to feel that way. And so, like, my goal in life is to be that for other people, to be that for everybody. And thus, that's what my showing up looks like, what I try to make it look like.
It's really interesting because me and Brandon met in the summer of last year in the form of activism in LA at all the BLM protests that was happening and the political uprisings that was happening around the murder of George Floyd. And we instantly just was drawn to each other.
Yeah, we clicked.
So it was such a beautiful moment and a beautiful experience. And so it's a deep honor for me, for you to be a part of this entire campaign and to share your story. And it just really rearranged the way that I saw myself. And it also gave me just an inkling of more confidence to just show up unapologetically as myself. So thank you wholeheartedly for contributing your story to this campaign.
Thank you for the opportunity and going back to last summer, for allowing me in, and I think we all had things to teach each other, and that was the beauty of last summer and what's still happening.
Yeah, I agree. We also have fun too, though.
We do have fun. We do have fun. As you know, we flirt back and forth.
Yeah. It's a thing, you guys. It's a thing. But it's interesting that you also touched on community, because I think that leads us into our next film, which is premiering today by Leyna. And Leyna really highlights the importance of community in her short film. And it also was another one of my favorite pieces that really inspired me. So let's look at Leyna's film.
My name is Leyna. The ballroom community, it anchored me in so many ways because it was the beginning of my education, of who I am, where I come from, where I can go. It's a place where you can be anyone you ever imagine, where fantasy is accepted, where dreams and imagination is a new language in itself. It was a place where I can create an image for myself that the world told me I could not have. It's a place where my community can have healthy, beautiful competition with each other, to be stronger, to learn, to grow, to build. It was my first runway. And I owe so much to the ballroom culture, for all the beautiful faces, all the beautiful women that I've met that are my role models, you know. I owe so much to that community, and I'm so excited to do anything that is wrapped around my rich, beautiful, flamboyant community. Every person that comes into our community, when they leave, they know it's okay being exactly who they are.
All right, can we welcome Leyna to the stage?
Hi. Hi, baby. Hi, y'all.
Gorgeous.
Oh my God, we all look so good. Come on, Levi.
Right? Doesn't she look amazing? Like gagging.
Give me all I want. and
How
more.
are you? You
I'm
look
good.
amazing.
Thank you. I feel so good. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy that Pride is allowing us to just see each other.
Right? And your film debuts today.
Yes.
How does it feel?
It feels good. I actually saw it this morning. Me and my best friend Billy saw it, and we just had a moment to just like recognize like how far we have come to be in this place, to have these moments, to tell these stories, to look out and look at people in their face and say, I'm here too.
I love that you shared this moment with your best friend Billy, because in your film, one of the things that you talk about is the power of community and how ballroom culture really helped usher you into like your beauty of becoming. And so I do want you to talk about that. But another thing that you touched upon that I really loved was the power of imagination, right? And one thing that I feel that became very evident to me in this pandemic right now is that we are constantly experiencing someone else's imagination in this world, right? Like someone imagined Levi's and enough people believed it to be true, and like we wear Levi's, right? Someone imagined the shoes that we're wearing. Someone imagined Facebook. Someone imagined Instagram. At every point of our lives, we are always experiencing someone else's imagination.
Right.
And so then the goal is to how do you empower yourself to experience your own? And you really talk about that in your short film. So can you talk about the power of imagination, but also how the ballroom culture helped usher that in for you?
Absolutely. Ballroom is literally set up for you to go inside here and in here and bring it out here. The power of imagination. I think at a young age, we all can look back and remember when someone told us to suppress something about ourselves that made us special. Whether it was our parents or our teachers or just someone out where you just living in open space told us like, oh, you have a little extra, a little something, don't do that. You know what I mean? So I think for me, growing up, I always wanted to just say F you to all them. Like, that's honestly what it is. I would like come home. I remember the first time I came home, my dad was like, I was like, why are people so evil? Like, why are people so mean? Why are we hating each other so much? And he was just like, you're just special, and this world is not ready for that. So just don't lose that. Don't lose your specialness. Like, love it and surround yourself around people that can celebrate that, and you can celebrate them. So, and that's what Ballroom came in. You know, Ballroom is a place where people that live in our society, that are in our system, that are in our educational system, can literally, they can't be seen, they can't be heard, they can't go and be on the soccer team or the basketball team or do other things. So they find themselves looking for other people like them that are also going through that. So I found that in Ballroom scene. Actually, my first ball was actually with my best friend Billy. He's literally been here since the beginning.
Billy, what's up?
Billy.
Billy is that friend.
Yeah, literally. No, that's what it is. Like, loyalty to community. I started the Ballroom scene when I was like 15, 16 years old. Like, I was just looking for a place to just have an outlet to express myself, to express my imagination. And this is a place where there's no whole bars. You come, whatever you want to be, who you want to see, what you want to do. You just literally come as you are. And I just think that, like, why isn't the rest of the world in that same mindset? It's just come as you are. Come, bring whatever you want to the table, and that's just beautiful as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why are we taught to suppress ourselves? Why are we taught that the entire human race can be in two genders and one sexuality? When we are so much bigger and better than all those labels and those boxes they put us in. So I was just so lucky to find Ballroom, and it's literally, like I said in the video, it's my original runway. It's where I started. And it's a place where I always come back to.
It is so interesting, right? Like, because then you realize, and I think one of the things, if there was a blessing to come out of the pandemic at all, I think one of the blessings to come out of it was that people start to really realize that like we live in a world of social constructs, right? Like we
Yeah.
live in a world of imagination, and so many veils were lifted, right? Like people start to notice how government isn't an immutable truth, right? These laws are not immutable truths, and at the end of the day, what really matters is community, right? Is love. Like you saw so many mutual aid campaigns popping up across the globe, right? You saw so many people coming to the support and standing in solidarity with so many different communities. And it was such a beautiful thing to witness. And one of my hopes is that like we really carry that beyond this year. We carry it beyond June, knowing that at the end of the day, once again, it goes back to the power of the mind, right? The power of imagination. Like we literally live in people's imaginations, like our schooling system. Someone thought about that, right? Like every aspect of our lives, we are experiencing someone's imagination. So then why not remember your innate power and experience your own?
No, I think that's me just saying I choose to be me and not what people choose me to tell me I need to be. I think that's kind of like where it all started, was just like, I got this body. I get all this blood flowing through my veins. I got to do something with it. I can't listen to people. I got to listen to what's inside here. And I also have to like find my tribe.
Yes.
And like educate myself, like what happened before all those rules were put down. Like how were people living in those worlds? How is our people out here surviving with just love? You know what I mean? I think that is just like, that's something that will always stick with me and be my truth with every form of realism. It was just stay true to yourself. Stop listening. First of all, the system never worked for me in the first place, so I have to do things differently. So that's power to me. To do different, to be different.
Ooh, I love that. Speaking of, right? Clap for that.
Thank y'all.
Speaking of being different and doing different,
Yes.
Our next panelist is someone who I think is absolutely incredibly remarkable and so beyond talented. And this individual is a dear friend of mine. She is an activist. She is a designer. She's an organizer. She's a cultural engineer. And I like to also say she's a gold connoisseur. She's the reason why you see me drenched in gold. But I want to invite Fresco Steez to the stage.
How you doing?
Hey, Fresco with the gold grill.
Right. Solid gold.
Fresco. So Fresco did a collaboration with Levi's at the beginning of the year for Black History Month. And Fresco is now releasing a new capsule with Levi's next week in honor of Pride. And so Fresco, can you walk us through like how you use denim and visuals as a form of activism and as a form of expressing yourself? Because I think the way that you do it is absolutely unparalleled, and it's really, really phenomenal.
Thank you. So I started this work doing organizing when I was 13 years old. And so my entire history has been thinking of different movements, learning from different political struggles, and thinking through how can I compound or intersect different mechanisms of oppression with culture, particularly Black culture and the Black radical tradition, like cultures of political resistance. How can we use those things and compound them to expand the number of people who understand the conditions that are going on in our communities and what it takes to actually resolve those conditions? And so it was an honor at the beginning of this year to do the Black History Month campaign, and it was in service to the Black radical tradition. And when I say in service to the Black radical tradition, I mean that it was to expand the base of folks who understand the arc of history, the story of how Black folks got to last summer. Black folks in the streets organizing, kicking in the door to establishments, capitalism, the ruling elite. That wasn't in a vacuum. It wasn't a coincidence. It didn't just pop up and manifest. Those folks are on the shoulders of the Black Panther Party, of folks like Ella Baker. Those folks are on the shoulders of Stonewall. Those folks are on the shoulders of the civil rights movement and ultimately the Haitian Rebellion. And so and draw art to understand that if you're coming into last summer, if you were out in the streets with folks fighting for the right to live, that you have joined a revolutionary league of folks across centuries, across ancestry, that have been fighting for the same things. And so that collaboration was really amazing to me. And so when Levi's came to me for Pride, the thing that I want to consistently do is to tell a story about political resistance. Sometimes when we think about Pride, now it's kind of apolitical. It's about confidence, spirit, joy, all things that absolutely matter. And we have to always reground ourselves that Stonewall was a political resistance, that Stonewall was the first Pride event was a political resistance against the state, and when I say the state, police, government, to say that queer and trans folks deserve a life fully lived, and we no longer are going to navigate New York and navigate this world being criminalized for our inherent identity. And so the first thing I thought about, because we had the beautiful opportunity to collaborate with Stonewall, the first thing I thought about was, what did Stonewall spark for folks, particularly in New York? New York is like the mecca of LGBTQ resistance. It's actually a very beautiful place to be, very specifically for queer folks, because you can always find your tribe here, and that's because of all the work that has been done throughout history. And so when I think about Stonewall, I think about Marsha P. Johnson, I think about all Sylvia Rivera and all the queer folks. I think about how that sparked folks creating other spaces to come to collective consciousness, like ballroom. But I also think about what immediately started to happen in the 80s and 90s, where LGBTQ folks, one of the most, if you want to learn about queer organizing is about ACT UP, Fight AIDS. Queer organizing is about the Lavender Hill Gang. It's about folks who saw their family members, their chosen family members, drop dead every single day. There's so many lesbians that had to be caretakers for their gay and queer comrades who dropped dead every day. And them dropping dead was not a manifestation of bad decision making. It was a manifestation of this government, of this country, not caring about LGBTQ folks, not thinking of them human enough for medical aid. And so there's so many, you did some of that work in Pose and articulating and illustrating for folks literally how people had to lay down on the ground and say that I matter, that my life matters, that I deserve a life fully lived, that my life is not going to be cut short because of homophobia, transphobia, and cis heteropatriarchy. And so this jacket, I couldn't fit all that on a jacket. There's a budget. I want you all to be able to afford the jacket. I would have put it all on the jacket. So the thing for me about this jacket, absolutely. The story for me starts with an ode inspired by Marsha P. Johnson. If you've ever seen a picture of Marsha, you see this floral crown that she's always wearing. And I saw an explanation where she was talking about how she shows up as a visual embodiment of the world and the life she wants to live. And so for me, if I think about me on the south side of Chicago and what I needed at 14 years old, what I would have told myself is that you deserve a full life. You deserve the opportunity to bloom to your fullest potential. And there are people that are going to be all around you telling you that you actually don't deserve that, oh, it's just my opinion, but, oh, you don't deserve to exist. And that you absolutely deserve to exist. You're not what's considered a weed, but you are a flower. And so that's there. On the front, we see unapologetic, because that's how I hope each and every one of us can show up to the world, our full selves unapologetically. LGBTQ folks shouldn't have to apologize for who we are inherently, who we love, and how we express ourselves in positive and beautiful ways. And so there are this is inspired by the AIDS work done across New York and across the country. And this one is explicitly says Stonewall was a riot. And so, yeah, I hope you all like it. And that's my
I love
explanation.
Love it.
I love it.
Fresco with the word. That was the whole sermon. That was so good.
Amazing.
And speaking of Stonewall, we're going to offer, well, not offer, we're going to bring to the stage, we're going to bring to the stage Maurice from the Stonewall Community Foundation.
Hello.
Hello.
So excited to join this conversation. I've been back there like snapping at everything you all have been saying.
Dive right in then. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just building off of what Fresco was saying, what we see today is that the reasons for the Stonewall uprising, even though we are, 51 years later, still really exists, right? Like we still see the over-policing and the over-criminalization of trans people of color, of sex workers, of homeless people, of youth. And so, unfortunately, there is still so much work to do and so much work to be done.
Can you talk to us about the work that you're doing at the Stonewall Community Foundation?
Sure. So Stonewall Community Foundation was founded in 1990 in the midst of the AIDS epidemic by a group of gay men who wanted to pool their resources to support the organizations that were working to save their lives and their communities' lives and their friends' lives. And so we, here we are in the midst of another pandemic, and we really have, pandemic and that kind of mutual aid response in our bones, in our DNA. We explicitly center and work to uplift and fund organizations that are led by and for the most marginalized members of our community. So that includes sex workers and people involved in survival economies, queer youth, queer elders, people who are incarcerated, the parts of our community that are the most marginalized and the most in need.
Yeah. My mind just went blank while you were saying that. But no, I think that's really great. And I think it ties into what Fresco and what Leyna and what Brandon was all talking about. And I know that you guys have been in long partnership with Levi's. So do you want to talk about that? Like, what is it, how has it been in partnership with Levi's? What does that look like? What do you hope in the future to be?
Yeah, we have I don't remember how many years, but a really long-standing partnership with Levi's. And it really is a partnership where it's not just about funding, but it's about, Levi's supporting the work that we do, supporting the ways in which we support the community, and really giving us, the reign and the license to do that. So it's a true partnership and one that we're really grateful for.
I like that.
And before we go into Q&A, I just want to pose a question again. If you can give advice, this is for all of you, if you could give advice to your 14-year-old self about trusting the journey of becoming who you're meant to be, what would that advice be?
That negotiations are part of it, but that there is a world of people waiting to accept you and to tell you that you can have a full life, that there is joy and there is fun, and feelings are just feelings. They don't equal who you are.
Shay.
I would say to my little baby self, girl, you are your most valuable asset. Just show up for yourself, and that's all that matters. Show up for yourself first, and then you can help someone else. We need to really love ourselves first. I think that's what I was looking for when I was a child, is just show up, girl. Just love yourself. Stop listening to what no one else. Stop listening to what other people think, and just, like I said, listen here.
I think I would tell myself that organizing is gratitude in action. In the way that you continuously have to show gratitude for the conditions that you live in, for your opportunities in this world, we have to organize. You have to organize as a 14-year-old and figure out how you are going to be committed to building collective power. And building that collective is finding your tribe, finding the folks that will carry you on a shared purpose for liberation.
I would tell my 14-year-old self that community, you get out of community what you put into it. You know, that creating chosen family isn't just something that you say, it's something that you have to do and that you have to show up for every day and in lots of ways. And if you do, it also shows up for you.
I love that. All right.
What would you say?
Oh. I didn't even. What would I tell my 14-year-old self? I would tell her that. What would I tell her? I'll tell her to heal first and foremost.
Gotta heal herself.
Because she was suppressing so much and assimilating and shrinking herself so much to fit into an idea of who she thought she would be. So that I would tell her that it's okay to heal, and that healing is a lifelong journey, and that she can grant herself the permission to become who she's meant to be, and that is a continuous journey. And so she can also grant herself the permission to reinvent herself as many times as she sees fit.
That's right.
I love that.
So we can dive into some Q&As. Does anyone have any questions?
Y'all better ask some questions.
So you mentioned that ballroom was your first runway, and can you just talk about that a little bit more? How did it feel to have your first runway? Like, were you scared? Were you ready?
I was honestly, I was ready. I think for me, it was intimidating also because I was around so many people that love themselves and I didn't love myself. So I had to learn how to love myself before I could be part of like this family that people were just like, you know, I think that was what I remember, just being around so many people that just didn't care about anything in the world and they just wanted to just be happy. And I think that's just the whole ballroom scene is about people just loving themselves. And I was so lucky to like be able to like see how that is like done, because in school people were telling me everywhere like you can't do this, you can't do that. So like in ballroom they were telling me yes you can. So I was just like, okay, I can love myself and I can learn how to love other people differently and understand how to like talk about that. I think self-love in the ballroom scene is the most powerful thing. You have literally people running around saying, I'm here, love me, I'm gonna love myself if you don't, and who cares if you don't love me back? So I think it was powerful to see that in so many different shapes and sizes and colors and contexts and different languages and different imaginations. It opened a whole new gateway of what love meant to me.
That was powerful. Yeah.
I think a really important question that was posed earlier was what does allyship mean to you? So I just wanted to open the floor to that to hear everyone else's opinion.
I think allyship is individual. It's not just writing some letters and going out and saying like, I support you, look at me. I think allyship is just, it can be as small as a whisper in the ear to say, I see you, or I hear your vibrations. I think it's about also like, not just saying, I see you, I hear you, but actually like putting the work down and writing in paper and making sure other people see it also. It's individual in its own, it's very special and unique, and when you find how to do that, it could probably change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I think it's quite personal.
Yeah.
And it ties into the beauty of becoming. It ties into who you become, who you want to become. It begs you to ask those questions of yourself versus being so presentational about allyship. And yes, it's amazing to like use a platform and raise awareness about what's happening locally, what's happening nationally, what's happening globally. But if you're not doing that work within yourself, if you're not asking those questions, the reframing can't happen. The readjusting can't happen.
I'm with Brandon in that. For me, like, allyship is like you going to therapy, right? Like, it's actually, it's like you actually healing, right? Because, like, there is no change externally if you don't do the internal work, right? Because like if you're just only putting up black squares or putting up rainbows, that's very performative, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that when I think about allyship, it's like he said, reflecting on like what are you actually doing? Like what is the work that you're actually doing to heal and to reframe the way that you've been conditioned to show up in society, right? Because it's not really about me. Like you can't accept me because you're not accepting yourself. And so until people actually understand that it's an internal journey, is what allyship looks like, the external doesn't work. Because at that point, it's performative, right? And I feel like we kind of got a taste of that again a few months in September after like the protesting uprising. Like all the performative allyship went out the window, right? Like no one was reading books anymore. They bought all those books and didn't read them. Like it was just very performative for the sake of doing it. And so for me, yeah, it was a trend. And so for me, when I think of allyship, it's really about like you doing the internal work. When I say you, I mean like the world, right?
It's ongoing.
Yeah, exactly.
What y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with all of that, right? It's not an identity, it's an action, it's a series of actions. Yeah. And it's also not something that's necessarily easy if you are someone who's from a privileged group trying to be an ally to a marginalized group, right? Like it should cost you something, whether that is, you're the one who's making conversations uncomfortable because you're bringing up the uncomfortable issues, or because, you are giving something of yourself, whether that's time or money or energy. But if you have privilege, then you have to give up some of that in order to be an ally.
Go ahead and take us home, Pastor Fresco.
I think that there have been a few good white folks throughout the Civil Rights Movement, throughout the Black Panther Party. We see Black and brown solidarity work, particularly with the Black Panther Party. And so I think that if you are looking for ends to understand what allyship looks like, there are some models out there that are to be studied for how people put their bodies on the line. And when I say put the bodies on the line, there are some folks that are getting beat up by police, but there are some folks that created spaces for marginalized people to organize and build power and made sure, or they fundraised for that. It wasn't just, I send you a PayPal individually, but I actually am committed to a recurring donation to this political formation that's going to transform the conditions of this community. I think for me, allyship is a constant and consistent practice. It's something to be studied. It's something that you absolutely have to make sacrifice for. It's uncomfortable. It's not self-sacrificial. I think that that's not the popular thing to say. I think that there's a way that you have to take the steps that feel comfortable and uncomfortable and explicitly uncomfortable for you, and then examine why it feels uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable or is it self-sacrificial? And make that judge for yourself, and hopefully consistently do it every day. I think that the last thing, particularly because this is Pride and we're talking about LGBTQ folks, allyship looks like young queer and trans folks who right now are understanding the way the world works. We have a responsibility, we all have a responsibility to show them a world where they can live and fully bloom. We all have being 14 and not having a queer person in my family, in my direct neighborhood, but going to an organizing space and somebody being like, it's okay to be you, right? I know your mom told you you're going to hell your whole life, I promise you. It's not, don't believe the hype. There's some things that we all have to participate in to transform the conditions for the young queer and trans folks coming up. That looks like conversations. That looks like taking them out to dinner. That also looks like making sure we don't buy from places that support LGBTQ discrimination bills. But I hope that we all can participate in allyship and build a new world for the young queer kids coming up so they don't have to experience what many of us did.
And let the church say amen.
We have one last question
Okay.
from our YouTube audience. So, Ogie, I will read it out to you. And it's specific you, Ogie. It's
Oh.
been almost 1 year since you released the incredible film, Invisible Portraits. How do you feel coming up on your 1-year anniversary of that film?
Oh. How do I feel? I really haven't had a moment to really take it in, making of that film, because all that's consistently been happening from, you know, the murders of, you know, George Floyd to Breonna Taylor to, I mean, the most recent ones like Adam Toledo, like all the things that's been happening. So it's really hard, if I'm being completely honest, to sit back and indulge in something and celebrate something at the moment. So I'll do that now in thinking about the answer to this question. But yeah, I would say I'm excited about it. Like, I'm proud of it. Like, it's not easy making a film. It's not easy making a film in this industry as a Black woman, as a Black queer woman. And so I'm very, very grateful and honored that I've been given the opportunity to change the way that we tell stories and to change the way that we understand the Black woman's experience in this country. And so I'm deeply grateful. I'm deeply honored. Releasing that film also reintroduced me to Levi's. I used to work for Levi's when I was in college. And, you know, it came back full circle when I was releasing the film on Juneteenth of last year. So I'm deeply grateful. So, yeah. Thank you, whoever asked that question.
Right.
Yeah. We actually have one more question in the audience. Can we do that?
Thank you, Ogie.
Yeah.
So, Fresco mentioned world building at the end of her last statement, and I'm just curious for each of you, what is one principle or idea or belief we need to bring into that new world in order for everybody to bloom?
I think one of the principles for me is community. I think we've really been conditioned in this society to think that everything is very individualistic, and that we have to look out for ourselves, and that, like, I only matter and then I can probably help you. And I think that one of the reframings that has happened within the past year and a half is the idea, or rather the rediscovery of, like, what does it mean to be in community, right? And I think that's why there were so many mutual aid campaigns, right? There were so many people in need. And I think when you allow yourself to remove the veils of what you've been conditioned to believe to be true, you start to see others as human. And I think that that was one of the beautiful highlights of this summer. So I think in reimagining a world that is life-affirming, I think at the root of it has to be this understanding and this practice of community.
I like that.
Thank you.
I want that. What a great question, by the way.
Right?
Yeah. I think all of us are probably sitting here thinking, I had to think. But education would probably be, like, at the top of my list. Education that is steeped in truth. And it invites what we all know to be what our realities are, which is like a full-blown, fully inclusive world, not just one perspective. I think that would be a nice part of the world.
I honestly would have to agree with what you said. I think since I am a Black trans woman and we are being murdered so much, I think the idea that for me, it started in the educational system. And it failed me so miserably that it still hunts me to this day. So I think the idea that we can get to a place in the future when, if a trans person is in school, the teachers are also trans. I think the reflection is so beautiful to see that at a young child, maybe seeing a teacher that is a drag queen that teaches anatomy. You know what I mean? I think that's just, that tantalizes me and wants me to go to school and allows me to have a safe zone instead of, like, also having ballroom, but also having a school system that really supports me, the pronouns, the ideas, the conversations, everything. You know, I think in order to, like, really protect the next generation of children, we must make sure that the curriculum reflects them.
I think about, when you said that, I thought about how do we eradicate fear in the new world? If I think about all of the ways that people are marginalized, it's fear of physical safety. Like, we have a fear of having physical safety, but why don't we follow our dreams, right? We have a fear of our financial stability. We have so many different aspects and levels of fear that actually guide and design how we navigate the world. What does it mean? I think about Nina Simone when she's like, what does it mean to live a life with no fear? Children live with no fear. If I could have that half my life, and she's rendered speechless when she says that. And so for me, eradicating fear means a set of people lifelong committed and deeply invested in building safety that is decolonized. And safety not meaning like a replication of the police, but a safety meaning that we are holistically creating a cradle for the new world, where folks don't have to have a fear of where their next meal is coming from, where rent, where heat, where all of the fundamental needs of humanity are going to be met. That what if you could lose entire fear of that grocery bill, your phone bill? What would you manifest in the world? What would Black women, cis and trans, how would they live if we didn't have to navigate patriarchy and and patriarchal violence, sexual assault, killing every day? How would you walk out of the house, especially in a place like New York? What would it mean to not be a reality for you? I'm committed to fighting for a world. I'm committed to designing a world, particularly where folks who are marginalized by gender and sexuality aren't moving and navigating this world around in deep fear of physical safety and the safety of their livelihoods and how they will continue it.
I love that. I don't know how to distill this into one concept necessarily, but I would want there to be trust. And what I mean by that is that we trust people when someone says, this is who I am, this is what I need, this is my name, these are my pronouns, right? That we trust them, and we let people lead the way with what they actually need, as opposed to having these various structures that gatekeep things like resources, things like whether that's healthcare or housing or just any of the basic things that we all need and deserve. I think that it would be a world where everyone's dignity is actually respected and valued.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. What a beautiful way to end this. And I just want to say thank you to all our panelists for joining us today. It is such an honor and a beauty to be in community and in communion with y'all. And congratulations again to you for your film premiering today. So super excited about that. And if you're around, go to Times Square and see her on the big billboard. See them all on the big billboard. But yeah, so thank you all for joining us. And I hope that you all have an incredible rest of the day. And yeah, let Pride extend beyond June.
Yes.
Chicago. I'm also.
Hey.